Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to the first video of NumiCoin. My name is Dylan and I'm the creator of this YouTube channel, which is going to specialize in all sorts of things related to coins, jewelry, collectibles, bullion, numismatics, etc. So, how I want to go about this first video is talking a little bit about myself and a bit of an introduction about me. So, my name is Dylan, I'm 25 years old, and I am in the United States in the North Carolina area. I started collecting coins when I was about 6 years old, and that started actually not by anyone in my family that piqued my interest into it, but just me for some reason taking an interest into it since I was a little kid. My dad would have his change jar sitting on the counter or on his dresser, and I would always ask him, like, hey, can I roll up those coins? Or, hey, can I look through those coins? And he would be like, yeah, sure. And I just found money interesting since I was a little kid. So eventually how it worked out is that I would get my dad's change jar, dump it out all over the floor, kind of just play around, look at it, kind of like learning about the money. And as I started going through that stuff, I would notice, this looks a little bit different, or hey, that looks a little bit different. And it may be like a nickel that was a bit older. Most commonly, what I would find that would excite me the most in change was to find a wheat penny. So the United States penny that started in 1909 and went to 1958. So as I've been going through all that, I'm like finding these different things, and it starts to pique my interest a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. How is something like so old, in this pile of change with like stuff that's way more modern, like last couple of years or things like that, or state quarters. So that started to pique my interest a little bit. And then from there, I remember getting to meet my grandfather up in New York, and he had all these piles of state quarters up in his house, and he had the books to put all the state quarters in. And I was like, that's interesting. So he ended up giving me a book. I ended up building up my own little like collection of state quarters and trying to find all the quarters out of my dad's change and popping them in the book, and just kind of, build up the 50 state set, which, was exciting. It wasn't anything like crazy valuable or anything like that, pretty much stuff that was just worth face value, but I found it really interesting. And how it ended up working out later on is we had an agreement with my dad. Well, I had an agreement with my dad, and that was, if I were to roll up his change, basically I could kind of just keep whatever didn't fit into a roll. So if there was a roll of quarters and there was 2 quarters left over, that'd be my payment for rolling that roll of change. And then the other part of it was, if I found anything interesting, like maybe a silver dime or a wheat penny or something like that, or just anything unusual, maybe even a foreign coin, then I would get to keep that also. And so I really just started with doing that, holding on to those different things I was finding, getting a little bit of savings from rolling his change, but also a little bit of my own allowance. And I just started saving that money up, doing a lot of research on coins. And then I remember at one point asking my mom, because we would go to flea markets and yard sales and stuff like that. And I said, hey, is it all right if I were to spend some of my allowance to see if I find any coins? So I can remember going to like the flea market that was about, 45 minutes away, something like that. And I would go through there, find anyone I could that was selling coins, try to talk to them, introduce myself. While I was with my mom, you got to take into consideration again, I'm probably somewhere around the 6 to 8 year old range. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember fully. But I would go, and I remember buying like some V nickels and some other wheat pennies and maybe a silver coin of some sort, probably a silver dime, and just finding it so interesting. And so basically I just kind of grew from that point and started collecting little bits here and there. I just started as a collector and was finding all sorts of just, little interesting things that I was learning a lot about. And the funny thing is, in school I actually didn't have much appreciation for history class. So when I started tying history to coins, that really started to pique my interest. So I remember from that point trying to go to the first coin shop I could. The shop was a neat shop. It was an older shop. It was actually right next to a Kmart, which no longer exists. But I remember going in there, seeing all these coins, all these things I knew nothing about, just finding it so interesting and unique. I remember talking with the owner and seeing what stuff that he could show me, what stuff he might have even had in his own collection or set back, and just looking through all sorts of things in the display cases, which was really interesting. So I remember at one point building up even the money to buy an entire roll of V-nickels. I believe at that time it was around $40, something like that, and for a whole roll of 40 coins. And I remember just dumping them on the sidewalk right in front of his store and just playing with those things and looking at them being like, wow, these are like amazing. This is so cool. This history that's in my hands. It's just, who touched these coins? Who held these? You know, how did they get worn like this? Why is this one dark? Why is this one bright? Why does this one look, you know, like polished up? So I just basically just kept researching. So after many years later, I had a decent sized little collection of my own. And I started kind of just advertising on Craigslist. We had some like some billboards, not really billboards, but like little like signs that we would put on telephone poles and stuff like that, saying we buy coins and gold. And we had that sign up, and people would call on occasion and say, hey, I got some coins. I remember also going to like again, flea markets, yard sales. As I started to learn values of coins and prices and stuff like that, I could kind of figure out like, hey, if I can get this at a good deal, then maybe I can flip it and make a little bit of money and then buy some other coins I like. And I was actually doing that when I was about 12 or 13 years old, along with my parents, and they would just kind of help me out, take me places, let me buy some different things, and I was kind of flipping them, selling some stuff to coin shops, selling some stuff to like online or to friends, things like that. The funny thing is, actually, when I was 13, I somehow managed to have an eBay and a PayPal account, even though technically you're supposed to be 18 to do both of those things. And I remember just finding different coins and throwing them on eBay and doing auctions and shipping them and getting so excited by the whole experience of selling and buying coins. It was just really neat. So from that point, I had saved up a decent amount of money for my age. I believe it was somewhere around $1,000 to $1,500. I believe the exact number was more like $1,200. But I was advertising again, still trying to buy coins. And I remember getting this call from this guy, and he was telling me that he had this whole coin collection. It was in this big binder, and it had all sorts of interesting things in there. At the moment, I don't remember all what it was. I know there's some Indian pennies, I think some tokens, some silver coins, some silver dollars. I think there's a little gold coin, things like that. And I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to, take a look at it. So I remember meeting this guy outside my dad's shop, and my dad had a mechanic shop working on vehicles. I remember meeting him out there, looking at these coins, and then talking to him about a price. And I believe he wanted somewhere around $2,500 for everything there. And there were some coins that were like some rare dates and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I was looking in the red book, looking at these coins. I'm like, I'm going to make some good money on this. So I actually convinced my dad to put in about $1,200 or $1,300 on top of the $1,200 I had. And what I did is I went ahead, purchased the collection, and at that point, I went to go take it to a coin shop near me and try to get a value of what I just got, because, I was excited. I just bought this big $2,500 collection, and I'm only like 13, 14 years old. And I'm just so excited, like what money I'm going to make, things like that. So I get there, show the coins, hand the book over to one of the coin dealers there. He goes through it. He's sitting there typing, all up on the adding machine. I just hear him punching numbers. And I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be awesome. So at the end of it, I'm like, hey, so, what was everything worth? And he's like, well, you have $24 here. And my heart literally just sank. I'm like, what do you mean we only have $24 here? Because in my head, I'm like, I just spent $2,500 for everything. And he's like, well, you had these, a few tokens here that were about $24. You had some coins here that were just worth a few cents a piece, and then everything else was actually counterfeit. And I'm like, counterfeit? I was like, what? Like, what do you mean counterfeit? Like, I thought if a coin looked like what I saw online, then that meant it was real. So right there, I had my first experience of, getting screwed basically by purchasing fake coins that weren't actually what they were supposed to be. A lot were not made out of silver or gold, or the date was fake, or the whole coin just in general was just totally fake, stuff that you get from China or AliExpress or something like that. And so I'm just sitting there just completely dumbfounded. I don't know what to say. I felt like I was going to literally cry. But sure enough, the whole collection was only worth like $24. I ended up going home with it, feeling so sick to my stomach because now I owed my dad all this money. I just used all my savings that I built up since I was a child. And now I have this thing this book of coins that's worth nothing, basically. So I ended up getting so upset that, one, I had to get my dad his money back. So, what I ended up doing was just taking this book, just shoving it somewhere. I don't even remember, probably in my closet or something like that. And I just started going through all my coins, getting rid of everything. I sold everything that I had saved up, everything that I enjoyed, and I just sold it all. I ended up doing something with the book. I think I sold it or traded it later on too, and just totally quit doing coins, didn't do nothing with it. So then I got my first job a couple of years later at a grocery store as a bag boy. I did that for about a year and a half, and then from there, I was getting a little bit interested in like sales and the jewelry and stuff like that, and I was like, maybe I can get a job at a jewelry store or something like that. So I ended up getting a job actually at K Jewelers, becoming a sales representative, and just, learning about jewelry, learning how to sell jewelry, going to work, having a little bit more better of a job than being a bag boy at a grocery store. So it just kind of built up from that. I ended up working there for a while, but during that time period, it was a few years since I'd done anything with coins, and this one lady that knew me, unfortunately, her husband had passed away, and she told me, hey, I know you used to really like coins, and I actually had these coins that my husband had when he had just saved them up since he was younger, and now they passed away. Of course, he doesn't have any use for them, so maybe you would like to look at them. I could definitely use the money, so if you can research on it, see what you can sell them for, make you a little bit of money, and just see what it's worth and let me know. And I was like, okay, well, I already had this bad taste in my mouth about coins, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do this, but I wanted to help her out. So I ended up looking at the stuff, kind of figuring out a little bit about it, doing a little bit of research. Not a whole lot. I did end up going to that same shop where I had found out that my other coins was only worth $24. Had them look at several things. I believe it was somewhere around $800 or $1,000 worth of stuff that he had, and which was pretty decent amount of money. So I was like, okay, well, that's pretty good. But for some reason, my instinct was just not to sell it to them. I ended up taking it back, holding on to it, trying to do a little bit more research. I ended up actually finding a Facebook group online about coins, and I was posting pictures of them, learning about it, and some of the people were telling me, hey, some of these notes are worth some good money because there's some paper money in there, or these coins are worth, X amount of dollars. And I was doing the math, and it ended up being closer to, I don't know, I think it was 1,500 or 2,000. Again, this was probably 10 years ago, or 9 years ago, so it's kind of hard to remember all that. But I was just like, wow, this is, worth some good money. I was like, and I guess if I want to get the top dollar out of it for her, then I better try to sell it myself again. And I never actually knew about anything of selling on Facebook. I was always doing stuff with eBay and things like that. So I ended up posting some of this different stuff, selling it, and I don't know, it just hit me like this bug right back in my system. Like, wow, I forgot how much I love coins and doing stuff with coins and how interesting it is. So I went ahead, sold everything, paid her money. I think I got somewhere around $100 or $150 for my time involved. And he's looking at this money. I was like, man, this is exciting. I was like, maybe I can actually do this again. So what I did is, went ahead and tried to do it again. But I knew this time I was not going to get screwed by counterfeit coins once again. So before I even started doing this again, I literally tried to learn as much as possible about counterfeit coins, about how they make them, what they make them out of, why they do it, where they come out of, looking at pictures of them, trying to just find any sort of examples of that I could, to know more about counterfeit coins and being able to detect counterfeit coins and learning like what they weigh, if they're real, how to test the silver without damaging them, but verifying that it is actually silver. Looking at all kinds of just any information really I could about counterfeits. So I went ahead, I did that, and learned a lot about it. And then I started just doing a little bit of buying and selling. And I was doing that along with working at Kay Jewelers. And so I was just kind of building that up on the side. And basically, after about a year, I actually had built it up quite largely to where it was doing pretty decent. I was making decent side money while working at the jewelry store. And I was like, okay. So I ended up going to a couple of coin shows here and there, talking with some different dealers, buying a few things, and started making little bits of money, buying a lot of like cheaper, junkier stuff, but stuff that didn't cost me a lot, but still had decent margins, whether it be, I buy a coin for $1 and sell it for $2 type of thing. So I did that. And, that was pretty interesting, getting to make this money, again, selling coins. And now that I felt a little bit more confident because I learned how to tell these fakes, I just kind of just started building it up more and more and more. And eventually I was going to shows quite regularly. I was shipping stuff constantly out of my house, out of my mom's house, just listing stuff all the time. I'd finally started to be able to drive, so I was going to all these different shows as much as I could, some in different states. I remember even not being old enough to rent a hotel because I was like 16, 17 years old, and so many of these hotels, you had to be at least 18. So I remember going to sleep in my car even, just so I could go to these shows that were further out, these really big shows that I really wanted to go to. And it was kind of dangerous. It was scary to like sleep in my car with, this valuables and just me by myself, and being out in the, in the car all by myself. That was kind of a strange experience, but it was worth it to me. So eventually I quit my job at Kay Jewelers, just started focusing on coins full time. I actually did the whole buying and selling, going to shows, going to coin shops, going online, going to flea markets, just started buying a lot and selling a lot. And I did that for about 5.5, 6 years. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier is, as a kid going into that coin shop, I always had the feeling, man, it'd be so neat to actually have my own store and be able to like have like neat stuff come in that's unexpected, and get to like see what people bring in and purchase it and then resell it later. That just sounded really neat to me. Like, what kind of treasures are out there and what kind of stuff I could find. Because I remember sitting at these shops looking at stuff, and people bringing in stuff like, oh, this is from my grandparents, or this was inherited or passed down to me, and I don't know what it's worth. Or like, hey, what is this stuff? And them looking at it, and that just intrigued me so much. And so since I was a little kid, I was like, I would love to have a shop of some sort, especially if it was like something with coins or, collectibles or paper money or something. So basically, I just kind of focused on that. I did the selling at the shows and everything like that for, I guess, the 5.5, 6 years. And then I opened up my first shop. I got some support with a good friend of mine. He helped me out getting started. It was a neat little shop. It was like 650 square foot little office space in a small town. And, I had display cases, had my safe, had little testing machines to check the coins on, my loops, all that, yada, yada, yada. And, I had my shop. People started coming in. I started buying more stuff, getting to see neat things that people had brought to me. It was a really cool experience. And so I just really had built that up at that store. But before I actually went to that store, there's a place I really wanted to rent, but it was a much larger place. It was 1,850 square feet, and it was like 3 times the size of this place that I was in already. But I was trying to get that place before I had rented this place, the one that was 650 square foot. And I had set up everything. I had met up with the property manager, the real estate guy. Yeah, it was the real estate guy who was in charge of finding someone to lease and rent that little spot, that suite or that office space. So I talked to him, told him, hey, I sell coins and jewelry. I'm like 21 years old, and, it's a really good business, and I think it's a great opportunity, something I would like to do. So I'd like to open up a shop at this location. And he said, okay, well, we just need to get some information off of you, get, some of the paperwork, and we'll, kind of work in this direction and see how it goes. I was like, okay, awesome. So I met up with him, explained everything even further, went into more details. It was kind of looking like it's going to go through. And then shortly after, he said, well, I think you're too young, so you're going to need to have a co-signer on the lease. I'm like, okay, well, hopefully, I can get someone to co-sign with me. So I talked to my family, and my grandmother was actually willing to co-sign on the lease for me to get this place, which I understood. I guess, hey, I was, pretty young to have a retail store, being only like 21 years old. So, said, okay, hey, no problem. I got a co-signer. Can you give me the lease agreement? So got the lease agreement, was looking it over. There's a couple things we didn't agree with. So I said, hey, can we revise these couple of things and then make a few adjustments? And he said, okay. And then after that, just completely ghosted me, just totally ignored me, nothing. And I was like, what is going on? And it was like 2.5 weeks later. And then I get a call from him, and he says, yeah, I rented it to somebody else. And I'm like, seriously? What do you mean? What do you mean you rented it to somebody else? Like, I told you I wanted it. I had the co-signer. I was ready to go with this. And he's like, well, yeah, you're too young and your business isn't a real business. So again, another heartbreak in my life. I had to go to this big shop and didn't get to end up doing that. So that's why I ended up going to that other place in the smaller town that was like 650 square foot. And so opened up that shop. I actually did that for almost exactly a year. I think it was like 5 or 6 days from being a year. So was in that store and just, wishing I could find something in the bigger area, because I know I could get more stuff. I could do bigger business. I could find more interesting coins and have a bigger and nicer shop. But just nothing was coming up. And I was, at this shop, but I was learning a lot of things. I was learning how to run a store, a lot of business things. It was, a great lesson and training for me for being prepared to have a larger store. But then one day, my stepfather was actually driving by the same spot where that shop was that I really wanted. That was 1,850 square feet. And he was looking, and he saw these like moving trucks or trailers or something, and they were just bringing tons and tons of stuff out of the store. And the store ended up being a flooring place that sold like different flooring, whether it be tile, laminate, wood, stuff like that. But sure enough, after like 1 year, or I guess it was maybe 1.5 years, something like that, they were emptying out the store. So my stepfather goes up, and he's like, hey, are you guys like leaving, or what's going on here? And they're like, oh yeah, we're actually moving to a different location because our business did so well here. We've outgrown it. We need to find a bigger spot. And so he calls me, and he's like, hey man, like this place that you were trying to get is back available. They like left, early for some reason. And I guess their business had just grown so much that they're not going to be there anymore. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, no way. And I had gotten so upset when that realtor guy had went and just totally disregarded me and gave me no credit at all for what I was trying to do, and just totally rented it out from under me and gave it to someone else to rent, that I went and tried to target and find the actual owners of the building themselves. I had talked to them when that had happened, and they said, well, unfortunately, we already have a lease agreement with that person, so we can't really do anything, but we're so sorry that happened to you. We didn't know that he was treating you like that and doing that to you. We would have totally worked something out, but unfortunately, it's a legal agreement with the other tenants, so we have to stick to that. So, now flash forward to this point. The second I knew that shop was going to be available, it was like the day they were emptying it out. I drove straight to the owners again. I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me from 1.5 years or so ago. I was like, but is this shop being emptied out? And they're like, yeah. It's like, it's being emptied, but like, how do you even know it was going to be available that quick? And I was like, well, my stepfather was driving by and he had saw it getting emptied out, and he went and told me. So I'm just letting you know right now, no matter what I got to do, I want to get this place. And they said, okay, we're not even going to list it on the market, that it's available for lease. It's yours as long as everything checks out. I'm like, okay, great. Sure enough, got the place. and it was awesome. I love the store. I built it up really well. I'm very happy. I've built a great reputation with the community. Lots of great customers. It's just really grown to something really special to me, and I definitely enjoy the shop a lot and get to meet a lot of awesome people, get a lot of cool and interesting coins and jewelry and stuff like that. And it's been such a neat experience to me. So now we're kind of near at the point of current time, which is right now. And I just was like, hey, what's the next step I can do in this? What's some other ideas I can go along with the same business and the same hobby that I have interest in for so long? I was like, well, what about YouTube? Because the funny thing is, I used to do YouTube videos when I was like, 14, 15 years old. I think I still have the channel somewhere. I was just kind of messing around with my brother, doing little dumb things. I did a couple coin videos. I did some stuff with my little brother, some jewelry things, some metal detecting, stuff like that. And I always had that cool feeling about YouTube and always really liked it. And I actually had made like $150 just off ads from that YouTube channel, and it was neat. So, I was like, hey, why don't I try that again now? So I went ahead. I've been working on this for about 8 months or so, trying to set up a little YouTube studio recording room. And, here it is. It's in an office space where we kind of work and list stuff online and things like that. It's not in my actual store. And I was like, hey, let's do it. So here we are. Here I am. This is in the studio. So, I'm excited about this. I can't wait to do more coin content with you guys, show you kind of interesting things that come in the shop, show you like what sort of stuff I'm purchasing, what stuff is in my collection, little like history things, teaching you about coins, about how to detect fakes, how to learn about grading, the different things involved with grading, the different types of coins, what makes a coin valuable, what doesn't, searching through things, just all sorts of content. And I'm really excited to have this journey with you guys, and hopefully you enjoy it too. And I think we'll just have a great time together, and really look forward to building an audience with all of you and hoping to have some really good content. So anyways, that's going to be the conclusion of this video. It's just an introduction on me. Apologize that it's so long, but I think it's a great start to this channel. And from here on out, we're trying to post interesting videos as much as we can, maybe even getting some other collectors and dealers and people involved in the numismatic communities on here. So anyways, guys, thank you. My name is Dylan once again, and have a great evening or a great day wherever you are. And please, if you have any opportunity, because this is a new channel, if you can please subscribe, that helps us out a lot, helps me out a lot in growing this channel. And really look forward to doing more content in the near future. So thank you, everyone. Take care and have a good one. See ya.